What happened after the doors were locked? Once the doors closed, the tone changed. Voices dropped, certainty softened, and the version of events the public would never hear began to take shape. The White House operates in layers. What is said publicly is designed for reassurance. What is said privately is designed for resolution. Today, when transparency is demanded yet control is expected, the distance between those layers has never mattered more. Because once the doors are locked, the rules shift. This meeting was not about making a decision. It was about confronting consequences. Participants entered with prepared positions, but those positions did not survive the first minutes. Without cameras, language became direct. Assumptions were challenged openly. Accountability felt personal rather than procedural. The locked doors created a sense of safety, but safety invites honesty, and honesty invites conflict. Disagreements surfaced that had been postponed for weeks. Tensions long managed through diplomacy emerged without restraint. This was not dysfunction. It was reality finally acknowledged. What made this moment significant was its timing. Public messaging had already been released. Commitments had been implied. Walking back was no longer simple. Inside the room, people realized the cost of earlier certainty. Outside the room, that certainty was already shaping expectations. As the conversation deepened, the gap between internal understanding and external narrative widened. Solutions discussed privately would not align cleanly with what had been promised publicly. That misalignment created urgency, not to fix a problem, but to manage perception. By the time the meeting ended, clarity had been achieved internally, but clarity came too late. The story outside the doors was already moving forward, unchained by what had just been admitted. What happened after the doors were locked did not stay there. It leaked slowly, through actions rather than words, and the consequences of that delayed honesty would soon become visible to everyone. After the meeting ended, participants returned to public roles carrying private knowledge. Their statements remained consistent with earlier messaging, but their behaviors shifted. Hesitation appeared where confidence had been projected. Language grew cautious. Timelines softened. Those outside the room sensed the change without understanding it. Reporters noted inconsistencies. Advisors fielded questions they could not answer directly. The gap between what was known and what was said began to widen, and that gap created pressure. Inside the White House, the conflict deepened. Acting on a new understanding would require contradicting earlier claims. Ignoring it would compound the problem. Each option carried reputational risk. The locked door clarity had arrived too late to guide clean action. Attempts were made to reconcile both realities. Policies were adjusted quietly. Statements were refined without acknowledgement of change. The goal was alignment without admission, but alignment built on omission is fragile. As days passed, the cost of delay became clearer. External events forced reactions that no longer matched internal conclusions. The administration appeared reactive, not because it lacked insight, but because it could not reveal it. Those who had spoken candidly behind closed doors felt constrained. The honesty that had briefly surfaced now had to be contained. Managing that dissonance took energy and focus away from solutions. The deeper issue was structural. Systems that separate truth from communication risk mistiming both. When understanding arrives after commitment, flexibility disappears. What remains is damage control. The locked doors had provided clarity, but clarity without timing is powerless. And once released too late, it becomes another secret the system must carry. As the days unfolded, the consequences of that closed-door honesty became unavoidable. Decisions made afterward carried hesitation baked into them. Policies looked incomplete, as if they were responding to something unnamed. The administration moved carefully, aware that its internal certainty could not yet be shared. The conflict intensified when external pressure increased. Questions demanded clarity. Events accelerated faster than messaging could adapt. The version of reality discussed behind locked doors no longer matched the one being defended publicly. This mismatch created strain across the system. Teams worked in parallel realities, one guided by what was known, the other bound by what had been said. Coordination suffered, confidence eroded, The gap between insight and expression widened with every passing day. Privately, some pushed to reset the narrative, to acknowledge change, to explain that new information had reshaped understanding. Others warned that such honesty would appear as reversal, not growth. The cost of credibility was weighed against the cost of delay. What made this moment especially fragile was that everyone now understood the stakes. There was no ignorance to hide behind, only timing. And timing had already slipped away. The locked door meeting had done its job too well. It had revealed the truth clearly, but too late to guide clean action. What remained was a challenge of acting on knowledge that could not yet be named. History often celebrates decisive leadership, but here, decisiveness had arrived after commitment. And once that happens, even the clearest insight becomes difficult to use without consequence. The administration was no longer choosing between right and wrong. It was choosing between transparency and consistency. And neither option came without cost. The climax of this story is not what was said behind closed doors. It is when that truth failed to arrive in time. Once the doors were locked, clarity finally emerged. The problem was understood. The risks were named. The path forward became visible. But understanding, when delayed, loses its power. It becomes a burden instead of a guide. The administration now carried knowledge it could not fully use. Acting on it would expose earlier certainty as premature. Ignoring it would compound the consequences. Either choice required sacrifice, and sacrifice, when forced by timing, rarely feels like leadership. The resolution is uneasy because it reflects a familiar pattern. Institutions often discover the truth only after committing to a version of events. By then, flexibility is gone. What remains is management, not choice. What happened after the doors were locked reveals a quiet truth about power. Transparency delayed is not neutrality. It is a decision, and that decision shapes outcomes as surely as any policy. This moment is not remembered as a scandal. It is remembered as a hesitation, a sense that something was known too late, that honesty arrived after certainty had already been sold. In modern leadership, speed is rewarded, confidence is expected, but understanding often arrives slower than both. When it does, it asks a difficult question. Are we willing to adjust or only to defend? History is filled with moments where clarity came just behind commitment. Those moments rarely announce themselves. They reveal their cost over time, in trust, in credibility, in missed chances. What happened after the doors were locked was not a failure of knowledge. It was a failure of timing. Subscribe to join the journey. What happened?